My name is Scott Johnstone. I'm a Guelph-based artist, and today I'd like to try a painting tutorial. The subject is a white-breasted nuthatch. Watercolor paper, the background, the feeder is gouache, and the subject is going to be in acrylic. The reference photo was taken at the University Arboretum at Guelph. It's a banded bird, which at the feeder made it easier to photograph. So I have a glass palette ready at my right, and I like to use a mid-gray color matte board under the glass palette. Just it makes it easier to judge colors. Got paper towels, got a jar with water for cleaning brushes, got my paints. Now, a couple of things that I've adapted, I use, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, it's just how I like to work. I have a spritzer bottle with water and acrylic retarder, which I spray on the palette in mixed colors. And I have a ready-made solution of acrylic white with flow release. It's very, very liquidy. But I mix it with the white because I use a lot of white rather than mix the flow release with the colors. Okay. And of course I've got a cup of green tea to relax with. I'll start off by spraying some retarder on the palette. I'll put my white on there. Some Payne's Gray. I'll just order the colors from, light to dark or however. Kind of paint I'm using today. I've got a tube Grumbacher Payne's Gray. Now the tube, the tops cracked and fell off, which was not a good thing, and the tube was kind of clunky, but the paint was good, buttery soft, and it's fine. It dries a bit fast on the palette, but it's a good quality paint. And Winsor Newton Galleria acrylic, a raw umber. I like the tube. It's easy to squeeze, and the tops are good. The paint is nice, texture-wise. Okay, so I'm probably going to start about up here because I'm right-handed. I should start left to right so I don't smudge. We'll start with the sunflower seed in the bird's mouth. Start with a fine brush, an acrylic loft 18/0 spotter. Get that wet a little bit. I mix some color on the palette. I want about a mid-gray. I've traced the outline to get the proportion of the subject accurate with transfer paper, graphite color transfer paper. So I've just gone around the outline of the major points and the subject, and it makes it easier proportion-wise. So I just want to cover up some lines, make sure they don't show through. I can't go over an area with paint several times. Just I want an opaque effect here. That area there looks to me about yellow ochre, so I'll try some yellow ochre in there. Again, where I place my colors on my palette, I'll put white in the corner and browns and black, graduate them from light to dark on one side, and probably the lighter colors on top. Same reasoning. So I'll put some yellow ochre on the palette on top. I do tend to paint very sparingly with paint, so I don't like to put a lot on the palette initially because I tend to wind up wasting it. It dries too quickly before I use it. It's probably why I use the retarder. I'm going to change my glasses to a higher magnification to see the details. I'm going to mix a bit of the yellow ochre with some of the gray, get a darker shade tone there. Working some of the Payne's gray around the darker edges. I'm just trying to color match here, paint on the palette with the color of the reference photo best I can. can still see the outline and the lighter edges, so it's not a bad idea to go over it initially with titanium white, you know, and get the lines covered. And you can go back and glaze in some color or wash in some color over that white line. That's an easy trick to do. And now it's taking shape. It's starting to look like a sunflower seed. A little bit of light on the shell. Now the paint tends to dry fairly quickly on the palette, so I just keep spritzing it with a retarder. And that's what I'm using to mix the colors. I don't want texture too watery. So I plan my sessions around 1 to 3 hours of painting, depending on the size of the picture. I try to avoid fatigue and take 10-15 minute breaks, get some air, stretch my legs, have a cup of tea. The details are sometimes very tedious with a small brush. I can spend an hour or so or more. The size, an area the size of my thumb, when there's fine details in there. But I like to be accurate, especially on the subject. I like the subject to be accurate. The background can be a little more loose. And I like the subject to be accurate. Thoroughly rinse the brush to get the darker, if you're using the same brush, to get the darker pigments off the bristles, because when you switch to a lighter color, it's going to darken the color quite a bit. So make sure keep your brushes clean. I'm going to go back over the outline, lighter part of the sunflower seed. The mixture of yellow ochre and Payne's gray, white in there. Tip the color with some white. Let's get the outlines covered. Or color matched anyway. Previously gone over the graphite tracing lines with opaque titanium white to cover up the lines. Washing the color there. If there's any highlights, you can add those now. Again, you can do your highlights in titanium white, and then you can wash in some colors just to get the right color matching. I don't want to make a mistake with the acrylic because the background is gouache and it's not going to forgive me if I make a mistake on the outlines. There, looks like a sunflower seed, pretty much. Yeah. And again, going over the highlights, little tiny details. Touch your eye. And the highlights are intended to draw your eye. Indicate the lighting. Wouldn't hurt to go a little lighter on your color matching here in acrylics because they tend to dry darker, as mine do. I'm using student quality acrylics. That's been my experience, that they do tend to dry a little darker. Well, that's satisfactory as far as I can see. The lines are covered pretty good. Okay, sunflower seed. Again, you can go over this again and look for spots that might be improved later. But mainly, this is I'm blocking in the color of the nuthatch. So I guess I'll just work right to left on this picture. I should work left to right because I'm right-handed, so I don't smudge anything. Lazy. And the beak, I can do the beak, the bird. Not finished. Again, you're just trying to color match the depth of the detail that you can see. No need to painstaking go into painstaking detail here, but the importance vaguely is color and atmosphere. I tend to see little abstract shapes. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, and you put all the little pieces together, step back and look at it, and it looks like a finished picture. So a little shape in here on the top of the beak, darker. And I want my outlines to be crisp. Avoid making a mistake here. The main part of the beak, I'm going to mix some yellow ochre with some Payne's gray, and then lighten it with some titanium white. Just adjust that a little bit darker. So that works. The right color. Color level along the bottom part of the top beak. Right line in there. And just along a little bit of a highlight just along the bottom of the top of the beak, the inside of the beak, a little bit lighter with some ochre, titanium white. A little bit lighter. still highlighting there. I don't want to put masking tape, I normally would, I guess, around the edges of the paper because it'll lift when I try and take them off. So I've made little corner pockets there and just sit the paper in there so it's not actually stuck to the board. Bottom of the beak there is kind of the yellowy, gray, white. And I just want to get the colors laid in.